In Portland, Oregon, a $1,200 laptop costs $1,200. In Nashville, that same laptop costs $1,311. In Montana, a $28,000 car costs $28,000. In Memphis, it costs $30,730. Same product, same country, different state, up to 10 cents of difference per dollar, entirely from state and local sales tax. Today on State Coded, the 5 no-tax states, the one that just passed 10%, and the question every state has to answer. 5 states at 0, 18 below 7%, 12 in the 7 to 8 range, 9 between 8 and 9, and 6 states above 9%. Tennessee at 9.61, Louisiana at 10.11. 5 tiers, 50 states. There is no federal sales tax in the United States, none. Every cent of sales tax you pay goes to a state, a county, a city, or a special district, never to Washington. 45 states impose a state-level sales tax, 5 do not. Within those 45, local governments add their own rates on top, sometimes a lot. The combined rate published by the Tax Foundation is the state rate plus a population-weighted average of every local rate inside that state. The specific number on the receipt in a specific city can be higher or lower than the state average. The whole map exists because Congress has never built a national consumption tax. Start at 0, 5 states have no state-level sales tax, the NOMAD states: New Hampshire, Oregon, Montana, Alaska, and Delaware. New Hampshire, as we covered last week, is the only state with no income tax and no sales tax, period, at any level of government, funded almost entirely by property tax. Oregon has no sales tax, but a 9.9% top income tax, different lever. Montana has no sales tax except in a handful of resort towns. Whitefish, Big Sky, places with too many tourists for the state legislature to leave alone. Delaware has no sales tax and a gross receipts tax on businesses instead. The buyer doesn't see it, the seller pays. And then there's Alaska. Alaska has no state sales tax, but roughly 100 Alaskan cities and boroughs do. Juneau charges 5%, Kodiak 6%, Anchorage 0%. So whether you pay sales tax in Alaska depends on whether the town you're standing in feels like collecting it. 18 states sit at or below 7% combined, below the national average of 6.44%. Hawaii at 4.5%, lowest non-nomad in the country. Hawaii calls it a general excise tax, and it's structurally broader than sales tax. But the rate is the rate. Maine 5.5, Wyoming 5.56, Wisconsin 5.72, Virginia 5.77, Kentucky, Maryland, Michigan, all at 6 flat, state only, no local. South Dakota 6.11, Massachusetts 6.25, Pennsylvania 6.34, Connecticut 6.35, Vermont 6.39, New Jersey 6.60, with negative local averages from urban enterprise zones. West Virginia 6.59, Idaho 6.03, and Idaho has the country's highest grocery tax rate, 6% applied to food. Iowa 6.94, Florida at 6.98, and Florida runs an entire state government on no income tax, plus moderate sales, plus 140 million tourists every year. The cluster looks similar on the map. The funding logic behind each state differs. Brief pause. This episode is sponsored by my private community. We go deeper on the data than YouTube can, state-by-state forensics, the math behind every revenue swap, what the Louisiana 2025 hike actually pays for. Over 100,000 readers. Link is in the description below. Now, back to the walk. 12 states sit in the middle, around the national average, 7 to 8% combined. 12 states sit in the middle, around the national average. Indiana, Rhode Island, and North Carolina at exactly 7%. Indiana and Rhode Island with 0 local sales tax authority. So their state rate is the combined rate. Mississippi 706, North Dakota 709, Ohio 729, Utah 742, South Carolina and Georgia tied at 749, New Mexico 767, and New Mexico calls it a gross receipts tax rather than sales tax, taxing services and intangibles too. Colorado's 789, and Colorado is unusual. Its state rate is only 2.9%, the lowest of any taxing state, but its local average is the third highest in the country at 4.9%. Most of Colorado's sales tax comes from the city, not the state, backward from how almost every other state does it. 9 states sit at 8 to 9% combined. Minnesota, 8.14, Texas, 8.20, Nevada, 8.24, Missouri, 8.44, Arizona, 8.52, New York, 8.54, and within New York City adds another 4.5% on top. So a New York City resident pays 8.87 for free, Kansas, 8.69, Illinois, 8.96, California at 8.99. California has the highest state-only sales tax rate in the country at 7.25%, including a 1.25% mandatory statewide local add-on. 3 states in this cluster have no income tax at all. Nevada relies on gaming and tourism. Texas relies on property tax and among the highest effective property tax rates in the country. Florida sits in the previous cluster, leaning on tourism. All 3 of them quietly send the bill to consumers, landowners, or vacationers. 6 states sit above 9%. Oklahoma, 9.06, Alabama, 9.46, Arkansas, 9.46, Washington, 9.51, Tennessee, 9.61, and Louisiana, 10.11. The only state in modern American history to cross 10% combined. Look at this cluster. 3 Deep South states. Tennessee and Washington both have no income tax on wages. The pattern reveals itself. Tennessee, as we covered last week, repealed the Hall income tax in 2021. So Tennessee runs on a 7% state sales tax, tied for second highest state rate, plus 2.61% local average. Combined, 9.61%. Washington has no wage income tax. It also adopted a 7% capital gains tax in 2022, plus a 9.51% combined sales tax, third highest in the country. 2 different no-income tax states, 2 different consumption tax stances, both at the top of this map. The trade is fully explicit. Louisiana, meanwhile, raised its state rate from 4.45% to 5% on January 1, 2025, and quietly took the number 1 spot. A few wrinkles in the data. Louisiana's number 1 position is temporary. By statute, Louisiana's 5% state rate is scheduled to drop back to 4.75% on January 1st, 2030. Tennessee may reclaim the top spot then. Tennessee may also push higher. Memphis is at 9.75% in 2026. Nashville reduced its rate from 9.7% to 9.25% in August 2025. The state average shifts as cities move. Then there's grocery tax, the quietest reform of the past 3 years. Arkansas and Illinois eliminated their state-level grocery tax on January 1st, 2026. Kansas eliminated theirs in 2025. Oklahoma in August 2024. Mississippi reduced their grocery rate from 7% to 5% in July 2025. The trend is consistent in states racing to remove sales tax from food while leaving general sales tax untouched. 13 states still tax groceries at the full rate. Idaho leads at 6%. And finally, New Hampshire deserves another mention. New Hampshire is the only state in the country with 0 income tax on wages, 0 income tax on investments after January 2025, and 0 sales tax. At any level of government, no state, no local, nothing. There is no federal sales tax. 45 states have one, 5 don't. The states that don't tax what you make tax what you buy. The ones that don't tax either tax what you own. It always lands somewhere. On the receipt, the paycheck, or the property bill. Same money, different lever. Next week, the state with the country's highest property tax, New Hampshire at over 2%, the state where you can own land for almost nothing, and the Texas trick, no income tax, mid-range sales, but property tax that pays for everything. Subscribe so the algorithm doesn't bury us.